Hi. Uh, yeah, thanks for inviting us along. Yeah, I'm not quite sure if yeah, how it got mixed up, but it's I haven't actually done the reptile talk yet because I thought, well, I'll wait until a few more have come out. We're starting to see a few more coming out at the moment, but they'll probably disappear with this cold spell. But yeah, if I share my screen, um, oops, wrong one. And I'm going to talk about amphibians in our neighbourhood. And mainly around Hook. Going to be talking about what you can find around the village itself and at Hart generally. But I'll also talk about some of the amphibians that we find in the rest of Hampshire. So I've got no plan, so I'm just going to waffle on and go through and just talk about what we've got. So what is an amphibian? A lot of people think if they see a frog or a newt that they need to be put back in a pond. But amphibians actually spend most of their life on land, and they return to water to lay their eggs, and sometimes also to find food. But they generally will only stay on land for most of their life. So we have, in this country, we have newts, frogs, and toads. Obviously, all slightly different. Frogs and toads are very similar, but I'll explain the difference in what we've got locally. They're also on the continent of Europe. They've also got salamanders, and that's pretty much their amphibians. The amphibian life cycle is the same for all of them, although the different stages look different. So they all lay eggs, and we'll come on to that in a minute, the different types of eggs. The eggs will hatch, and all the tadpoles have gills, and I'll come on to that as well, because quite often people get a bit confused with frog tadpoles. Frog and toad tadpoles then lose their external gills, and newt tadpoles keep them. And then their back legs start to grow. Newts tend to start with their front legs. And the front legs grow and the tail gets shorter. But obviously with newts, they keep those tails. So there's a lot of similarities. And normally when the tadpole grows up, and for frogs and toads, we call them a froglet or a toadlet. And for baby newts, when they sort of come out of the pond, we call them efts. So we've got here these the baby amphibians. So they start off as eggs. So we've got here, let's see if I can laser. I don't know if people can see this. So we've got frog spawn up here, which is laid in clumps. And it's quite surprising when you think in each clump of frog spawn, there's about 2,000 eggs. So it doesn't look like it when it's in the pond, but there's about 2,000, sometimes more, in a clump. And if you've got, they're a good way of telling how many frogs you've got, because for every clump, you're going to have at least 2 frogs, possibly more. And then we've also got toad spawn here, which is in long strings. A bit hard to spot because they hide it underwater and they wrap it around plants, and it's difficult to count how many strings there are because they're all sort of spread out and all tangled up. If it's got a row, see this one is a row of 2 eggs, so that tells us it's a common frog. If it's a single strand of eggs, it's a natterjack toad. So this is from a pond. This is an amazing amount of spawn. The spawn actually I haven't got it all. It comes right back over here, all around here. And that's probably about 12 square meters of frog spawn. So we think probably about 500-600 clumps of spawn. So it's no way of counting them. There's just so many. But if we say 500, that means there's 1,000 frogs just in that one pond, at least, probably more. So it's when we came across it, it was just amazing, the size of it. Then we've got the different stages of the tadpole. People don't often see these. I took this picture on Sunday, actually. It's a baby frog tadpole. Toad tadpoles look the same when they first hatch, and they just look like a little black blob. And you see that little white piece of jelly on there. That's their yolk sac. And they will just sit in the pond. They won't move. They don't swim. So that's why people don't see them. They just hatch out of their egg, and they just lay there, and they suck in the yolk sac. Once that's absorbed, then they'll actually sort of start to grow into the tadpoles that we we know. They'll start swimming and feeding on algae and things like that. So that's when they turn to this stage, and you can actually see on there they've got external gills, and this is when sometimes people say, I think I've got baby newts, but these are frog tadpoles. Newt tadpoles are very similar, but after this stage they do start to change, and you can tell whether it's frog or toad. So they become the normal tadpole shape that we know, and frog tadpoles will start to become, in fact I've got a picture here, they'll start to get this metallic sheen and like speckling. That tells you it's a frog. If it's black or very dark brown, it's toad. And newts are a bit different. They're a bit more careful with their eggs. The female newt will lay one egg on a leaf and then fold the leaf over and squish it together so it hides it from predators. And they only lay about 200 eggs, so they have to be a bit more careful. Frogs and toads lay more because lots of things like to eat them. Lots of things like to eat baby newts as well, but what they try to do is they try to hide the eggs, so it makes it more survive. And you can probably see just in this corner, you can just see a little egg in there. I've got some more pictures. We've got some more leaves folded over. There's an egg on the side there. We've got two different colours for eggs. So we've got, if they're brown, it's either palmate newt or smooth newt. If they're a sort of a yellowy, greeny, white colour, they're great crested. And there's a female great crested newt laying eggs. She just uses the back legs to squeeze it together. You can actually watch some of the videos on YouTube. It's really amazing how they take so much care. And it probably, where a frog will lay 2,000 eggs over the course of an evening, a newt will lay about 200 eggs over several days. And this is what baby newts look like, a little bit different to, got a bigger picture, a little bit different to frog and toad tadpoles. So they look just like the adults, except they have these feathery gills, and obviously they're a lot smaller. And so we've got in this tray here, this is, we've got a mixture of palmate newts, which are the smaller ones, and great crested newts. And this is what they look like when they come out of the water. So we've got, basically, we've got a baby toad here. Looks exactly like an adult toad, except a lot smaller. And the same for this is I'm trying to remember which one this is, can't see the line. This is a smooth newt baby. It's just emerged out of a pond. So then we come on to the adults themselves. We've got the frogs and toads. Frogs, I use these, but they're not the best of pictures, but it shows the main differences. Toads generally have a much rounder face, and frogs will have a much more pointy face. We've also got, a common frog, a common toad. We've also got water frogs in the area. So we've got pool frogs and marsh frogs. It's very hard to tell them apart, but these are populations that we're aware of. So, but the main thing that tells them apart, they have this very sort of, as well as having a pointy nose, it's very cone shaped, whereas the common frog is quite flat and pointy. The water frogs aren't from this country; they're from Europe. People have brought them over as pets and they've escaped, but we also record those as well, so we know where they are. Also, I go back to that one. We've also got natterjacks in Hampshire, which are very rare. They're only found on a one or two sites. They're very similar to the common toad, but they have green eyes and a line down their back. But with our newts, we've got three native species of newts. We've got our palmate newt, which is our smallest, and they're called palmates because it's a word palmated, which is their back feet are very webbed. Then we've got smooth newts, which are quite common in gardens, and we've got our great crested, which we don't have many. We've got 2 or 3 sites around Hook, but very, very small populations. Not many at all, so they're very vulnerable. And we also get some odd turn-ups. This was from Newnham Road. This was a long time ago. This was about 20 years ago. I got a call from the Hampshire Wildlife Trust, and somebody from Newham Road said they'd spotted this. They thought it was a poison arrow frog or an exotic frog. It was bright red in the bottom of a pond on Newham Road. So I went out to have a look, wondering what to expect. And it's actually a common frog, but all the colour in its skin were shades of pinks, reds, and oranges. And it's what we call erythristic. It's a bit like albinism. So if you get an albino that's white with red eyes, and this is the same bit there, sort of a reddy orange pink colour. So, and what we do, so this is what we do is high WOG. So we tend to go out surveying sites. We look for amphibians and reptiles, and I do a lot of pond dipping. I've been doing lots of pond dipping recently, and finding and recording them. And what we do is we tell landowners that ask us to survey what they've got on their sites, so they can then look after the animals better to make sure that they're not doing anything that might sort of damage their habitats. And sort of these are some of the sites that we look at. These are all the reptile ones, but we've got lots of amphibian ones as well. And that's coming on towards the end. So we also make homes for wildlife. We sort of dig ponds and encourage habitats. We help with tow patrols. So if you've been driving along the Hook Road between Hook and Rodwick the last sort of a couple of months actually, you might have seen me walking up and down, just moving tows across the road, doing my daily exercise, and helping tows across the road as well. We also do rescues sometimes if we get like heathland fires, and also amphibians down drains. You might see me sort of halfway down a drain pulling amphibians and reptiles, or mainly amphibians, out of the drains. And if some of this 2009, that's last year actually, just before lockdown. So this was at the community centre, and where there was like an animal day there, and we were there sort of showing some toads, we had some newts and talking to people. But yeah, it seems a long time ago since we've done public events. But yeah, so we love amphibian and reptiles. Hopefully I stuck to the 15 minutes. So that's pretty much the presentation. Oh, look at that, 16 minutes. That wasn't bad, was it?
Hang on.